Right. Welcome to the Common Man podcast. Today's guest is Kevin Burk. How are you today, Kevin?
I'm doing great, Lorenzo. Thank you. How about yourself?
Yeah, I'm great. Thank you for joining me today. I'd like to get started with a brief introduction. Can you tell us, a little bit about yourself and where you're from?
Uh, I live currently in Houston. I grew up in New Orleans, went to college in Connecticut, 28 years living in San Diego, and then moved to Houston.
What is your favorite spot you like to be in?
I love Houston.
Okay.
I really, really love it.
Okay. I've been to San Diego. I live in San Jose, California, and I've been to San
Mhm.
Diego. I love it down there. SoCal is always really nice, the weather. But I've never been, to Texas or, Houston for that matter. So definitely got to put it on the
There's a
calendar.
lot more. There's a lot more weather here,
Hmm.
but it's just it's more affordable. It's closer to family. It's just I San Diego was very pretty, and it was a really important part of my life,
Mhm.
but there was just no scenario where I would ever be able to own property there.
Yeah,
So
yeah. That seems
that was
like that's the story I think for a lot of Californians right now.
yeah. Yeah, there's a lot. It was a big influx of people from California moving to
Moving.
Texas, which is like, oh, you get a lot of bang for your buck with real estate here. It's
Yeah, definitely. My question, the next question would be, what is the human game experience? I noticed that that is like a huge thing that you or that's like project or something that you came up with.
yes.
I'm really interested in it, and
Okay.
how you got into it, and tell us a little bit more about that.
Okay, let me give you sort of the log lines on things. Uh, the human game is a philosophy, and it's a philosophy based on the idea that the universe is made up of stories. So if everything is story, when you understand how story works, you can understand anything.
Mm.
And the human game experience is an astrology based reality role playing game that can give you creative control over the story of your life. So it's a way of applying the idea of, oh, everything's story, and this is really, here's how to really find the fun in that. Here's how to find the shape of the story of your life. Here's how to get some creative control, and find the fun. So, and then the human game experience is an actual online program where I can sort of guide you through that. I offer it a couple of times a year, and it's an 8-week online program, and you actually get some coaching and tutorial videos and experience and feedback, and actually stepping into this and applying these ideas and experiencing them in your own life.
Mhm. And how did you get started in doing that? Like, what interested in you in creating your own philosophy? Like, where did this come about? Does one day you're, about it's like, oh, I'm going to create this philosophy, or
No,
I
no,
want
no,
to
no,
help
no.
people?
Well, no, always wanted to help people, but no. I didn't. I only recently, like maybe a year and a half ago now, only recently came out as a philosopher. I didn't know that I was a philosopher. I was an astrologer for 30 years. I misidentified as an I mean, my pronouns were Scorpio, Cancer, Gemini. That's who I thought I was. And I never really fit in the astrological community because I was always asking questions that nobody really seemed to care about or understand or be able to answer. And I didn't think too much of that because I never really fit in anywhere. So it's like, oh, it's just another place I don't really fit in. And then about 2.5 years ago, in the middle of teaching a program that no longer exists because this is sort of how I do things, I started coming up with these ideas of how to play with bits of astrology in a way that was like active and empowering and fun. And I started to put together the idea of the human game. And it was very complicated. I mean, I was, kind of, uh, in a lot of ways, always sort of approaching this from kind of a Dungeons and Dragons sort of way. So I'm building out the worlds, like, okay, here's how the whole universe works, and here's the structures and all of the, and really necessary for me to kind of understand what this was, but overwhelming for people to sort of look at it. And I started, but I knew there was something here, and I was experiencing it, and I was having so much fun with it. And I had, for about a year and a half, I'm doing things with this, and I didn't know what it was.
Mm.
It was a coaching model, but it wasn't quite that, and I'm struggling to figure out what it is. And then one day I realized it's a philosophy.
Yeah, I
It's not,
noticed.
it's, yeah, and that
I
just,
sorry.
go ahead.
I just before you keep going, I noticed that you lit up, when you started talking about it. Like one day, it clicked. Or was there an experience or like a moment you're coaching someone where it clicked, and then you're like, "This is what this is."
No, it wasn't engaging with someone, but it was a period of sort of, again, trying to figure out what this was. How do I market it? What is it? And it hit me. And I was like, well, this is a philosophy. And it took a while to acclimate to that. But I was like, oh, it's a philosophy. So I don't need to worry about trying to get this accepted as therapy or counseling, because it's not. It's, in fact, I make very clear distinctions between therapy, counseling, and coaching, and they're each incredibly useful. They have different objectives. They do different things. This is coaching. This is a philosophy. So it's an idea. It's a way of looking at the world. I'm not claiming anything about, mental health. I'm not making any kind of guarantees or promises or evaluations from a medical. No, it's just, this is fun, and I've there are side effects. I mean, I have personally experienced significant levels of happiness, and I've seen so many people that have played this and have worked with me coaching with this, and just seen how some of these ideas just all of a sudden, it's like, oh, they're like 20 pounds lighter. It's like, oh, yeah, not that big chunk of my life. That's now, I can look at that a little bit differently, and that's a lot more fun. And nobody really, nobody outside of you needs to know how you're engaging with your
Do you
life.
think it's like a perspective shift, or like
It is, but it, and the reason, so broadly, externally, it's a perspective shift. When you go down the whole deep philosophical um, underpinnings of that, it's the fact that reality is all perception. Reality is subjective. We tell ourselves that there is this external, objective reality, but there isn't. All your entire reality exists sort of inside you. It's your
Mm.
sense of identity and how you feel. And that's all you absolutely know that exists. So, there appear to be other people in the world that exist, but I've only got their word for that. I have no way of actually knowing for certain, because they don't live here in me. I just experience them as something separate from me. And that's not saying, go play Grand Theft Auto, because it's not saying other people aren't real, but it's just recognizing I can only control my story. I can only control my experiences and how I feel, and nobody else knows, and nobody
Mhm.
else needs to know. And if it amuses me to play this game and to look at reality as a game, and to live and build out my imagination, nobody knows. I'm not, nobody's there are times when my life has a laugh track. I mean, there's no reason that your life couldn't be a musical. One of my favorite ideas is, nobody's going to know if in your reality you view the world and you're you and everybody else is a Muppet. Nobody's, if you don't tell, I won't. If it amuses you, if it helps you to feel better, if it helps you to have fun as
Hmm.
you navigate your life,
Why does it matter?
exactly, exactly. And it's an interesting, just sort of gnawing on this before we started talking today, that there really is, this isn't about escaping or denying reality. This isn't about escaping into some fantasy world where you're not dealing with, the external requirements. There are, I call, the external thing, I call these the plot level goals and obligations. There's things you still need to deal with, but there's the outside world, and then there's how you feel about it. And how you feel
Hmm.
about it's a different level of story.
And what role does astrology have in
Okay, let me ramp up to this a little bit. Um,
that?
the
Sure.
principle of, so the fundamental way that I look at how story works, the most specific thing to look at, is that we see reality and it's a story, and the reality that you perceive is what I call the composite story. So it's like the television signal. And that's comprised of the television signal is comprised of three different channels, as red, green, and blue. And so in the human game, the composite story is comprised of three different levels of story. There's the plot level story, character level story, and the theme level story. And they combine together and give you what you experience as reality. And you can't do much with the composite story. And so the plot level story is everything that appears to be outside of you. It's the outside world, it's the external sequence of events. I call it just the facts, man. You've got basically no creative control over the plot level story. You didn't create it, you can't do much with it, it's just there. You
What's
have to
been
deal
given?
with it. Character level story is everything that goes on inside you. The character level story is what happened to me. So it's how those external events seem to affect me. How do I feel about it? So everything in the character level story is really where you live. It's, and all you care about is feeling better. That's human beings. We've got about 8 lines of source code. I mean, I'm working this out. We're really very, very basic. And then everything kind of gets written on the fly based on those motivations. So you've got a lot of creative control over the character level story. And learning to separate the plot level story from the character level story is kind of the first tutorial in the human game process, because that's when you start to go, oh, now I see how this can actually work. And then we have the theme level story. The theme level story is the epic, the mythic, the symbolic, the archetypal, the spiritual. It is the great stuff that's bigger than you personally. It's the great theme level stories. It's where all the meaning is. It's incredible. It's powerful. It's what we're really looking, when you're looking for meaning, you're looking to tap into the theme level story. So the good news about the theme level story is you have absolute creative control because it's all made up. And the bad news about the theme level story is you have absolute creative control.
Hmm.
Scariest thing in the world, if you're a writer, if you've ever tried to write, scariest thing in the world is a blank page.
Yeah.
Astrology, which is all made up, just like everything else, but it is very specifically a collection of symbols and archetypes, and it operates at the theme level.
Mm.
And so one of the things that's really been useful about this is realizing, okay, you can't just grab something from the theme level and apply it directly to the plot level story. It doesn't. That's why there's so much of astrology feeling, oh, this is interesting, but what do I do with it? Well, you don't directly. You've got to actually connect it through the character level story to be able to do anything with it, because you're missing the control center, which is your character level story.
So you have to apply it to yourself.
You have to apply it to yourself. You have to understand how to take that story and like transforming the energy, step it down to a current that you can actually apply. So the thing that I love about astrology is that, for example, your birth chart is this multidimensional map of all of your character attributes and all of your potential and the city of your life and all of the things that you'd ever want to be able to create. And when you understand how to play with that map, it's like, well, I've got this entire toolbox on of the theme level stuff. I'm never faced with a blank page. I can pick one or two little things. I've always got this personalized thing. Ooh, how do I find some meaning in this? I'd like some bigger guidance. I'd like a bigger perspective on X, Y, and Z. Oh, here's how I can pull a little something from the theme level and my birth chart, and it's personal to me, so it's a good story because I believe it, because it's, I was born with it. It's the stars. And then you learn how to thread that into your reality so that it's something that you can use, so that it's something that doesn't, because this isn't so much about personality. We think about astrology, the way most people see astrology today, it's a system of personality typing. And it's very much about, oh, this is who you are, this is the box you're in. And that's helpful, but it has a limited range of use. And when you're working with the astrology stories in the human game, they're dynamic. You're recognizing, okay, I approach this particular type of goal with this stress. So I'll delve into a little bit of specifics. Signs don't matter because the signs aren't really a single thing.
I had questions on that later.
Yeah, okay.
Yes,
So
actually.
again, modern astrology, everybody thinks it's about the signs. It never really
Yeah.
was. It was always about the planets. But then Sun Signs got published in 1968 and it became a whole thing. And it's fine. But the planets are the things that do things. The planets are the parts of your personality. They're the seven voices in your head. You have to step into a planet to do something. And the signs tell you sort of how the planet functions. But each sign is made up of a combination of one of the four elements, fire, earth, air, and water, and one of three modalities, cardinal, fixed, and mutable. And the element and the modality answer different questions. The element tells you which language you speak, which kind of fuel you need. And the modality tells you how you approach a particular goal or project. And you don't get anything extra by trying to combine the element and the modality into a sign. And in fact, when you're trying to work with, especially with the information that's out there about the signs, you kind of lose the ability to do much with either of those little components. Now, I counsel 25. I've been teaching astrology since 2000. I've been counseling as an astrologer since like 1998. And in all of that time when I was working with clients, cumulatively over 25 plus years, maybe I spent an hour and a half talking about the modalities, because it just wasn't, I was talking about the signs and the planet, and now I literally, you have to tell me to shut up about them because, but it's just so there's three modalities, okay? And these are three different ways that you might approach a particular goal. And you're hardwired for different parts of your life, different areas of your life. You're going to be on a different team based on the planet in charge of that area of your life in your chart. So cardinal is team hare, fixed is team tortoise, and mutable is team hummingbird. And these are three completely different ways that you might approach a particular goal.
What
So,
about approaching specific people or other people? Does that have anything to play into it?
well, okay.
Sorry, I didn't mean to throw you.
No, but it's a whole best to begin with sort of recognizing there are no other people, there's just you. This is a one-player game. Everybody else is basically a non-player character for the moment until you figure out how to navigate yourself. But you're not applying this particularly. So this, what I'm talking about, is not something you would apply as a blanket to other people. And basically the only time when we're dealing with other people, and this is part of what astrology, in popular version of astrology, does, it answers a really essential, fundamental, profoundly important philosophical question that cuts to the heart of humanity, which is what the hell is wrong with it? And astrology and personality typing helps us to answer that. We need to know.
Yeah.
Other people are crazy.
Yeah.
We don't know. They're in the way. They're frequently obstacles. And if you can't somehow anticipate or predict or accommodate other people's behavior, it's a real problem for you because that's going to mess with your happiness.
Mm-hmm.
And so we rely on personality typing. And astrology is incredibly great because you're able to put people in boxes. You're able to explain, you're able to tell yourself a story that reasonably answers the question, what the hell is wrong with you?
Yep.
And so then what the hell is, oh, Aquarius. That explains everything. And what happens there is you take that person and you put them in the Aquarius box where they belong, and you know where that Aquarius box is in relation to where you think you are. And
Mm-hmm.
so because you've put them in that box, you can now kind of anticipate, or tell yourself you can anticipate what they're doing, why they're doing it. It's no longer a problem for you, so you can get on with your life. That has tremendous value, but it's limited because people don't like staying in their boxes. And you're never going to be comfortable being put in a single box for yourself. And there's a big difference between you putting someone in a box in your mind so that the character of that person makes sense to you, and you trying to get that person to agree with the fact that, oh no, that's your box, you need to stay in it. That's where it doesn't really work.
Yeah.
That's where we get a lot of pushback. So it's all about you understanding and organizing this stuff.
Okay,
So
so so back to your modality. Sorry, I want to bring it back to that
yes,
because it was very
yes.
practical. So you had
Okay.
cardinal, hare, and
Cardinal,
tortoise.
fixed, and mutable. Three different strategies for a particular goal. Three different ways of approaching something. So if you have a cardinal approach, if you're on team hare, the race is a sprint. The objective is get to the finish line as fast as possible. And in fact, it's kind of a leapfrog thing. If it's a cardinal approach, if you have a cardinal approach to a goal, that goal is an archery target. And you have to hit it with a single arrow. And so all of your preparation goes into aim. It's all planning and preparing and aiming, and then you let go of the arrow and you're done. Literally, once you have let go of the arrow, there's nothing more you can do. You either hit the target or you don't. But you're done, basically, at that point. If you hit the target, you take a giant leap forward. If you miss the target, you don't make any progress. You've wasted an arrow and you try again. If it's a fixed approach, the race is a marathon. You're in it for the long haul. It is about managing resources. Your strategies are all about sustaining and maintaining and supporting and making sure that this is going to be something. It's an endurance thing. So you've got an entire internal accounting department that is managing all of the income and outflow targets and the resource targets, and don't hit me with any kind of change. I can't, change in plans. No. There's paperwork. That's got to go through. That's got to get approved by the accounting department before I'm going to be okay with making any adjustments to that, because there's lots of things going on here. That's the fixed approach. Mutable approach, the race isn't a sprint. It's not a marathon. It's a scavenger hunt. So it's not about getting to the finish line. It's about checking all of the items off the to-do list. You can do that in any order. And once you've accomplished all of the tasks, then you're done. Each of these, perfectly valid approach to a thing. But when you recognize there are certain parts of your life that you're always going to take a particular approach to it. So where this showed up for me, where this and in more than 2 years to this day, it still blows my mind on a daily basis when I think about this. Like, oh yeah, no, totally, that's it. I take a cardinal approach to money, and I would look back at how. So basically, I don't want to think about money. Right. Money is like, okay, fine. I need to think about money. Great. Here is a giant amount of money, and if I can just get that, then that will mean I don't have to think about money for a while. That it's just like, if I got to deal with money, we're going to deal with it all at once. And so I would set these ridiculous goals. I would create a new program, and I would have all of these ideas about, here's all the money I can make and I would put all the money into all the time and energy into building it. And I'm feeling great. I'm loving putting these things together. And I launch the program, and then that's it. I totally lose. And it's like, okay, well, I either hit the target or I don't. I generally didn't hit the money target. It's like, okay, well, I'm on to whatever the next thing is. And that's not often that hasn't been a successful strategy for me. And part of the reason is that the target was always so unreachable. I'm setting this ridiculous amount of money that, while it's not impossible that I could have hundreds of people enrolling in a class, it's not supported by historical evidence. It hasn't happened yet. And one of the things about this strategy is realizing, okay, I can't look at money in any other way. I'm always going to view it as that target that I have to hit with a single arrow. Okay. Nobody says the target has to be all the way at the top of the stairs. I can move the target closer. Yeah. All I need to do is break it down into smaller goals. I'm never going to be comfortable or interested or able to pursue a money goal in a methodical step-by-step way. It's always going to be a leapfrog thing. But if I break it up into more attainable targets, so I'm not trying to jump from the bottom of the stairs to the top of the stairs in one leap, but I can set a target like 3 steps ahead, and then I'm still hitting a target with an arrow, and then I get to move 3 steps closer because I've hit that target. And it's like, oh, that's a really workable strategy. And that makes and daily, because I'm on Team Hair about a lot of different things in my life. And having that recognition is like, oh yeah, no, this is useful. This is good information. This is what astrology was supposed to be doing in terms of being like useful.
Right.
And and I'm on all three teams. Most people are on at least two. And so it's interesting also to realize, because sometimes you've got conflicting agendas. Like, for example, I have a cardinal approach to money, but I have a fixed approach to happiness. So that's always a little interesting dichotomy, because on the one hand, yeah, great big financial target. And, if I hit that great big financial target, that would also mean a huge influx of happiness, which my accounting department would not be prepared for. They would not. Doesn't matter that it's more. It's just it's gotta be, because I got a fixed approach. It's gotta be accounted for. And so it's like, okay, yeah, I kind of need to find a way of balancing out those two strategies, because before I realized that, I didn't understand why I was limiting myself in so many little subtle ways. And it's because, yeah, I don't want too much of a change. Yeah, definitely want to build my happiness, but I need to do it gradually, because it's a fixed approach, and my accounting department will freak out if it's just all of a sudden, oh no, all problems are gone. It's like, no, 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 no. We gotta know the plan for that.
Right.
We're okay
Right.
with a plan, with a gradual, you know, 6-week process of here's how it's going to go, and nothing's going to really be disruptive, but it's just going to be this. I'm totally cool with that. But it's the sudden, unexpected stuff that has. And I look back on my life and it's like, oh yeah, that makes sense. I understand why those behaviors kicked in there, because I was freaking out because there was too much happiness too quickly. I
Yeah.
can't have that.
Oh man, that's awesome. That's a lot. That's a lot there. Uh, it's a lot to take, and I'm excited to go back and re-listen so I can figure out which modality like I fit into, and it's not like you said. It's not going to be all my whole life in one area, right?
No,
There's
and
always
and and it's
overlapping.
also really important, and this is part of what we do in the human game experience, because a little astrology goes a long way.
Mm.
And in the entire human game experience program, we're really only looking at 3 bits of astrology, and really only 2 of them are you going to be working deeply with. We're looking at the moon, because the moon is how you manage your safety needs. So to be happy, you just need to you need to manage your safety needs. You need to manage your validation needs. And when you're managing your safety needs and your validation needs, then you're happy. And that
Mm.
just means you're free from want and you're free from need. Doesn't mean you feel good. It's not the end of the story, but it's the happily ever after, which means you've got your entire life ahead of you and you no longer have to worry about happiness. So you get to make choices based on what you would like rather than what you think you have to.
That's good.
So the moon tells you how you approach safety. And so we build out the story of what safety needs are. You get a real practical understanding of where these live in you and how, and then we start bringing in the astrology a little bit of what language do you speak for safety, and what modality, what team are you on? How do you approach safety? And then what area of your life has the greatest natural resources of safety? Where are you just going to go and you stumble over safety if you engage in that particular area of your life? And you start to learn how to work with those 3 separate but related stories to help you to experience in the moment what happens when, oh, I'm going to do some character level stuff here and just fill in some safety resources, so it doesn't matter whether I accomplish this external goal, because that external goal isn't going to make me feel safe. Could add to my safety, but it's not going to mess with it, because I'm managing. I'm not going to lose anything because I'm meeting my safety needs. So you work with the modality, you work with the astrology with the moon, and then you learn to do the same thing with Venus, which is how you express love and appreciation. It's your validation needs. And that's so much. That
Yeah.
is really, it's more in the scheme of an astrology reading, it's nothing. In the scheme of like practically being able to use astrology, it's literally, it's like probably all you may ever need. Until you're ready to really go deeper with the human game, which is not a requirement, but just having those little components, and then maybe a little bit of knowing, kind of your character class, based on the planet that rules your chart, um, and just those little pieces of information. So you're not diving into the whole map of your chart. You're not trying to figure, okay, what does this planet mean? It doesn't mean anything. It's not practical right now. It's theme level.
Hmm.
You don't need to live there. You're not going to find the answers there.
Yeah.
Those answers have to be, you take a little bit of it and then you find meaning in those answers, but everything's got to be practical. Everything's got to be, okay, what do I actually do with this? How can I
Yeah.
use this to, to accomplish my goals and be happy and get what I want?
It's so good. It's so good, Kevin. As we wrap up here, coming to the end of the podcast here, I have a couple of questions.
Certainly.
First, where can people find you and follow you? Is there something where we can send them to, a page or website?
Yes. Please visit playthehumangame.com.
Okay.
And
And that's if
that's
you want to get involved in, the human game experience,
that's everything.
everything. Okay.
That page gives you an introduction to sort of the human game itself. It's got information on the human game experience. You can sign up for the free human game introduction series of videos, which is, it's basically my video blog, but I don't generate a lot of content quickly with it, but it's lots of little. It's an opportunity to really explore this, to see more about what this is about, to explore a couple little concepts. It's kind of my sketch pad. So I think there's about 12 videos in the series right now, and I've got about
Awesome.
4 more being planned, but they're not ready yet. But that's free, and that's a great place to start,
Okay.
in terms of getting familiar with this. And it's PLAY, thehumangame.com.
Awesome. And then finally, what is, one piece of advice or final thought that someone should take away from this conversation today?
Life really can be fun. Fun is different from happy. Happy is different from joy. Fun is the chocolate sprinkles on the top of the ice cream sundae. Somebody says, would you like fun with that? The answer is always sure. On its own, it's not that nourishing, but recognizing that no matter how uncomfortable you are in the moment, no matter how difficult your current challenge is, no matter what you're going through, you can always find a little. There's always the option of at least finding a little bit of fun. It doesn't forgive it, doesn't make it better. This isn't the spiritual vibe, but it's like sometimes all you can do is, I'm going to have some fun with this, because everything about this just sucks. But
Yeah.
you know what? I'm here to play.
There we go.
and sometimes that's a lot. And it's always available. And the more you learn how to find it, the more familiar you get with, oh, well, I can at least have fun with this. It makes life just a little bit easier, just a
I love
little
that.
bit nicer.
I love that. Thank you so much, Kevin. I appreciate you, for being on the podcast and sharing your wisdom and the human game experience.
Thank you, Lorenzo.